unquote. It says, while I've agreed to always be truthful, I want to make it perfectly clear that I have not made any statements, have not been interviewed, have not cooperated, have not agreed to testify or be a witness for or against any party in the case, and have absolutely no intention of being involved in the trial process in any way. In court, some startling statements.
Please state after each statement whether or not you agree or acknowledge that the statements are true. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I became affiliated with YSL around 2016. Is that true as it pertains to you, Mr. Kitchens?
Yes, ma'am.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
You were present when law enforcement officers stopped the vehicle in which you were present along with Jeffrey Williams, wherein hydrocodone, methamphetamines, and a firearm were recovered. These items did not belong to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you acknowledge the following statement? I recognize, accept, and deeply regret that my talent and music indirectly furthered YSL the gang to the detriment of my community. YSL as a gang must end. Is that your statement or acknowledgement?
Welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. You know, a bunch of people have asked me to do a video on this. It's a little bit late. The reason I didn't do it is because 1090 Jake, man, he's like the leading journalist on this. Not even a YouTuber, I call him a journalist. And he crushed the story. You know, maybe I can give you a little bit of a different perspective because of my, legal knowledge, being in prison for over 18 years, one of the best jailhouse lawyers in the system. So I can kind of give you a perspective of what's going on. We'll explain what an Alford plea is. We'll explain the fact that, Gunner's testimony at his plea colloquy when he accepted his plea doesn't necessarily hurt Young Thug. And there's reasons why. Some people have speculated that this was the nail in the coffin for Young Thug, but you can't cross-examine that statement. So there's a case that says from the Supreme Court that they can't use that. And they can't. Unless, of course, other factors come into play. And we'll talk about them as we go through the video. But at the end of the day, man, remember this, that the prosecution, that the government, they will do everything they can to take your life. They play no games. But let's get into the story. Let's find out if what Gunner did really affects Young Thug and see how this thing all pans out. When that 100-page indictment dropped, things got real for Sergio Kitchens, a.k.a. Gunna. But does his plea hurt the big homie Young Thug? Gunna took what is called an Alford plea. What is that, and where did it come from? The name Alford plea is taken from the case, North Carolina versus Alford. An Alford plea, also known as a best interest plea, registers a formal admission of guilt towards charges in criminal court, while the defendant simultaneously expresses their innocence towards those same charges. And that's what Gunna did in open court. In pleading, Gunna was asked and he agreed that YSL was a music label and a gang. In fact, he agreed that YSL committed crimes as a gang. In open court, the questions were clear. You were present when law enforcement officers stopped the vehicle in which you were present along with Jeffrey Williams, where hydrocodone, methamphetamines, and a firearm were recovered. These items did not belong to you. His response? Well, none of this belonged to him. Then who did it belong to? Damaging the Young Thug? Of course. But can the prosecution use these statements against him when he goes to trial in just a few short weeks? The simple answer is no. Why not? What do you mean? They can use it. No, not really. The DA cannot use statements that Gunna made at his plea hearing unless he decides to testify. But this is why. In 2004, the Supreme Court of the United States handed down the decision in Crawford versus Washington, which turned the rules of evidence upside down. Crawford overruled and rejected the long-standing rule of Ohio versus Roberts, which focused on established hearsay exceptions and essentially required judges to assess the reliability of evidence before determining whether it could be used at trial. The new Crawford rule says the right of confrontation guaranteed by the Confrontation Clause in the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution prevents testimonial evidence such as affidavits from being used at trial unless 1, the witness is present at the trial and subject to cross-examination, or 2, the witness is unavailable and the accused had a prior opportunity to cross-examine the witness. Young Thug never had a chance to cross-examine Gunna when he decided to plead guilty. And this is why Gunna's statements
when he pled guilty can't be used. However, there is a caveat. The plea agreement is more interesting, so let's break it down. Inside of that plea agreement, it says, if called by any party in this case, you will testify truthfully, but reserve your right to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. Reserve his right? He already pled guilty and admitted his involvement, so how could he self-incriminate? You see, the prosecution in open court asked Gunna specific questions, so they could lock him in the event they called him as a witness. They had him admit guilt to certain aspects of the crime to help prove their point if need be. Part of his agreement is that he would testify truthfully, but on the flip side, the prosecution also wanted to make sure that he would not come testify for the defense either. Why? The initial indictment, and there has been a few, the prosecution says Young Thug and others conspired to associate together and with others for the common purposes of illegally obtaining money and property through a pattern of racketeering activity and conducting and participating in the enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. So that means there must be other criminal acts that are tied to the gang for Young Thug to be found guilty. In the initial indictment, he is charged in count 72 with possession of stolen property, a street hammer. Yeah, you know what that is, and possession of drugs. The same incident that Gunna said those things did not belong to him. Count 75 ties that AK to Thug as well. The prosecution may have locked him in to admitting that none of these things belonged to him, so that Young Thug and the defense could not call him as a defense witness to say that none of this belonged to Young Thug, but it all belonged to Gunna. After all, he already pled guilty. He might as well take it, right? The prosecution wanted to make sure that didn't happen. This shit's like playing chess. You have to think 3 steps ahead. Back in the day, people would plead guilty and the co-defendant might go to trial. And the guy who pled guilty, well, he never shows up for his homeboy's defense. But the streets, they got smarter. How smart? People would plead guilty and then show up and say, nah, Young Thug had nothing to do with that. That was all mine. I pled guilty. So now the government is locking people in so that they cannot come in and say that those things belong to them to help out the other person going to trial. The indictment reads like a hood novel from Donald Goines to Shannon Holmes. Charges that can end lives, including Young Thug's. The 100-page document that tells the story of YSL. It characterizes YSL, Young Slime Life, or Young Stoner Life, as a criminal street gang and alleges 182 instances of the collectives participating in gang activity and criminal conspiracies, citing lyrics, social media posts, and clothing or accessories with slime emblazoned on them as evidence. Atlanta's Fulton County Grand Jury also charged some individuals with violent crimes that included attempted armed robbery and murder. According to the indictment, Thug, the heartbeat of Atlanta's fertile rap scene, is allegedly the founder of this street gang, which formed in the city in 2012. The prosecution claims that YSL has affiliation with the National Bloods gang, and some associates also claim the Blood subset Gang Sex Money Murder, or 30 Deep. The rapper founded record label Young Stoner Life in 2016 as an imprint of 300 Entertainment. YSL Records calls its roster of artists the Slime Family. Other rappers are named in the indictment as well. Names like YSL Duke, Yak Gotti, and even Thug's brother. It seems the Democratic District Attorney, Fannie Willis, has made clear that she is on a mission to fight crime and gang violence in the ATL. She made it clear publicly that it does not matter what your notoriety is or what your fame is. If you come to Fulton County, Georgia, you commit crimes, and certainly if those crimes are in furtherance of a street gang, then you are going to become a target and a focus of this district attorney's office. And we're going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. With the rise of violence in ATL, she said that gangs are committing conservatively 75 to 80% of all the violent crime that we're seeing within our community, and so they have to be booted. Rap lyrics are on full display in these trials. It is a tool cops and prosecutors are using to get convictions. What better evidence than you admitting the things you're doing is how the prosecution paints the picture. Boozy, Bobby Shmurda, Draco, The Ruler, and 6ix9ine lyrics have all been deployed in court as evidence against them. Boozy and Draco, The Ruler, were acquitted, though the others were not. In January 2021, Maryland ruled that rap lyrics could constitute evidence of guilt. Earlier this year, however, Jay-Z and other prominent artists took a stand by publicly supporting Senate Bill S527, a proposed New York law known as rap music on trial. The bill would limit the use of lyrics in criminal trials. Prosecutors in the YSL case have cited multiple songs as evidence of gang affiliation and racketeering activity. Many artists have shown their support for Young Thug. Drake put out a song, Sticky, and references the case. Hey, yo, Eric, bring them girls to the stage, because somebody's getting paid. And free Big Slime out the cage. The Toronto chart topper also used the phrase Free YSL as a brief title card in the music video for the track Falling Back. In an interview with ABC News, Killer Mike said, hip-hop is not respected as an art because black people in this country are not recognized as full human beings. If we allow the courts to prosecute these men based on characters they created and stories of pretend that they tell in rhyme, then next, they'll be at your door. Are the stories pretend? The prosecution says they are not. Young Thug says he's innocent and should be freed. And remember, when Gunna penned that open letter, he wrote, I use my art form, my gift from God, to change my circumstances. For now, I don't have freedom, but I am innocent. And now he pled guilty under an Alford plea, saying that the weapons and drugs found when he was present with Young Thug were not mine. Is he innocent?
So, does Gunna's plea hurt Young Thug? Not necessarily. It's not like they can take it and they can use it and say, well, he said this and he said that. Because you can't admit that at that trial. It's not admissible. The only way that stuff comes in is if he testifies. And I'm not saying that he is. Because when you're in jail, people don't realize, man, you might be in there with your right-hand man and be like, yo, look, man, go ahead, man, cop out, man. They're offering you a plea, man, take the plea. And people could be like, damn, he only got, 1 year in jail for this, for this RICO, but what evidence did they really have against Gunna? I mean, there's a whole lot of variables in this case, right? Young Thug might be like, yo, look, man, I need you on the street, man. Need you to do this, this, and this. Go ahead, man, get out the way. No one really knows what happened or what the conversations were, and you won't know until, 3-4 weeks later when that trial starts. If that trial starts, I think that he's probably going to end up copping out in the end. I think his lawyers are going to give him the best advice they could give him, and that is, yo, there's a lot of evidence here, man. They got you. And, I know they can throw out the tapes and the recordings and the conversations, but you better believe, make no doubt about it, that there will be people that come there. There will be some of his people that come there and say, hey, don't hide now, motherfucker. You know what you did? What? I mean, that's how it works, man. This system is designed to break friendships. It's designed to destroy families. And sometimes it's us. We're the ones making the decisions, right? We're the ones living in the street. Make no mistake about it. Young Thug, man, he's got that persona. He comes out there. He's like, yo. But deep in his heart, man, I'm sure that there's times where he's like, when you walk in that courtroom, you're like, when they start talking about trial, you're like, oh, shit. I've been through it, man. You get all dressed up, man. You put your tie on, put your little coat on. You're like, damn, man, this is it. And in the back of your mind, You're like, damn, man, these motherfuckers, boy, they got me, man. I'm going to a trial that I can't win. They got me. Why am I doing this? Well, because the plea's 20, 30 years. So you might as well take him to the bank, right? I think in the end, man, they may offer him something reasonable, right? Reasonable to, the average person that's never been in jail might not be what's reasonable to a person that's sitting in jail talking about, damn, they could give me life. What is reasonable for him? Could be 15 years, could be 10, could be 20. With good time, he's going to start calculating, when am I going to get out? And sometimes you have to weigh your options, man. If they got you, they got you. I'm not saying that they got him. But I will say this, from what I've read, the evidence looks damaging, man. It looks like it's an uphill battle. I hate when young dudes, man, lose their lives, right? And like I said the other night, man, there's victims in this case, and we don't always talk about the victims, and we should, man. Because there's some bodies in this case, right? Some people, and I'm not saying Young Thug did that, but, some people have been accused of that stuff. But, there's mothers that lost sons. There's little girls that lost their daddies, right? All for what? For the streets. What do the streets really got for you, man? You always heard it. People say it all the time. Only 2 ways out, man. Death or prison, right? Jail cell or a pine box. I mean, that's when you got to start weighing your options. If you got a couple dollars, man, now might be the time to be like, you know what? I'm good. Before they start tapping your phone, before they start calling your man in to talk to him and offering him, hey, look, man, I'm about to give you 40, man. You want this plea? For 10? For 5? Or you want us to put your lights out? Now might be the time, man. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. I hope I gave you a little bit of a different perspective. With respect, until tomorrow, we're out.